So if you're in LA, I suggest you come out and hang out with us.
All right, very cool. It's called Bitcoin Is. So you can go ahead and Google bitcoinis.com. I don't have any links to share. I also don't happen to have any of, I can pull up Jimmy's book when we go to his website. But we got some crazy stories like since our last show. I mean, you really it's like April Fool's Day every day around here. Like I don't like a lot of people didn't think this was real. Like I'm still not sure. So the whole insanity over what are we calling them? Faketoshi, CSW, Fake Satoshi. Like how do you like to refer to Dr. Craig Wright?
Scammer, but that's that BSV scammer or something like that. God, I'm convinced if this doesn't convince people that he's not Satoshi and that he's a complete con artist, that nothing will, and that BSV will always have a little bit of value because of the complete morons that believe him.
All right, so let's review real quick. It was actually hard for me to talk about the Craig Wright versus Kleiman court case. I would have loved if I was in Florida and I wasn't traveling. I guarantee you, I would have spent my days in that courtroom if it was open to the public. And all of this surrounds the death of David Kleiman, who died in Florida due to complications of a shotgun, and still some mystery as to whose finger was on the trigger, I believe, though I think the consensus is that he killed himself. I am a little skeptical when there's Bitcoin involved, and when there's a murder and Bitcoin involved, I am very, very skeptical. And basically the estate, I guess Kleiman's brother, Ira Kleiman, I'm not sure who that is in relation, but the Kleiman estate is suing Craig Wright for the Bitcoin that Craig Wright supposedly owes to Kleiman, because as the theory goes that Satoshi is a group of people, which is Kleiman and Faketoshi and potentially Hal Finney, who's also happens to be dead. So we don't. That would have been something though if Hal Finney was alive and he had to be testify in court. That would have actually potentially cleared up a lot of the situation. So not surprising that there's all this stuff is going on. So this happens to center around this Tulip Trust, which supposedly a giant amount of Bitcoin, 1 million Bitcoin, that is sitting in this Tulip Trust, that because of Kleiman's death and I guess Hal Finney's death, that Craig Wright, or Faketoshi, I should probably say, has the keys to. Now, Faketoshi has not been able to prove that he actually has the keys to this Bitcoin from 2009 to 2011. Otherwise, he would have been able to prove that he's actually Satoshi. So he wasn't able to prove it. So here's where the problem comes in. So he was in court trying to, because he has to, if he's pretending to be Satoshi, he has to keep the facade going. Like the best defense for him to go to court and say, I am not Satoshi, why the hell am I here? I wasn't involved in this mess in the early days. But because he came out in 2015, I believe, early 2015, and this was after, it might have been 2014, I think it was early 2015, which was after Kleiman's death, which took place, I believe, in 2013, but I thought it was in 2014. I don't remember the exact date. I was already like following the crypto space, so I remember this happening. And so since Faketoshi came out as Satoshi, he's now in court because he stole Kleiman's keys. Now, the best defense would have been, I'm not Satoshi. You can't prove that I'm Satoshi. Like the burden should have been on the court and the Kleiman camp to prove that Craig Wright is Satoshi for him to be liable to return this Bitcoin. But because Satoshi, or fake Satoshi, is claiming to be Satoshi, the burden is now on him to continue to admit that he's Satoshi, potentially committing what do you call it? What's something in court? Perjury in court, but at the same time, convince the court that he doesn't have access to the keys. So this becomes And then say, thinking, I can't talk to any of the lawyers about this on our show because most of them are from Florida and they're and they may know too much, so they can't talk about it. But in any case, so the court apparently ruled that Satoshi is three people: Hal Finney, Dave Kleiman, and Faketoshi. And now Faketoshi owns David Kleiman 500,000 Bitcoin, which I'm dying to know how he's going to provide. Now, initial reports were incorrect about the taxes. They were claiming that because it's an estate and Florida has a 40% estate tax law, that this $5 billion would owe $2 billion in taxes, but it should take place as of the price of Bitcoin at the time of Kleiman's death. So that only puts it at $25 million worth of Bitcoin, because the rest, if they want, assume. So there's multiple assumptions here. I'm gonna give it off to Jimmy in a minute. So can Faketoshi provide 500,000 Bitcoin? And then the other question is, I don't understand why everyone is talking about the second part. This is the part that's interesting. The part that's interesting is, will he be able to provide 500,000 Bitcoins? That's the interesting part. What it's going to do to the market of Bitcoin is a completely separate question that we don't even need to consider until we know that he can provide the 500,000 Bitcoin, because the judge had said that the three of them as a group are Satoshi, and Faketoshi owes 500,000 Bitcoin to the Kleiman camp. Jimmy, your thoughts on this? This is Bitcoin, right? I mean, I think it's as crazy as it gets, but let's wait till next month.
Yeah. Fact of the matter is, this guy's been faking the whole time. He was ordered to give the addresses where the Bitcoins were, and he said he couldn't provide them, which is hilarious, because he knows that if he provides an address and it's actually not in there, or somebody moves it or something like that, he would be found out for a liar. This kind of what triggered the whole thing. The other thing from the case that was interesting is that he claimed that the private key was Shamir secret shared with several people. And now, for people that don't know what Shamir secret sharing is, it's a way to break up a private key so that nobody knows the secret unless you bring at least some amount of the pieces together. One of the astute things from this judge that I was really impressed with was the judge figured out, okay, through the questioning, Craig Wright said something like, well, you need to know the ordering of the Shamir secret key or sharing shards in order to reassemble the key. And if you know something about Shamir secret sharing, the ordering doesn't matter. And the judge figured that out and said, okay, you know what? Like, you're clearly lying or BSing the court or saying something like talking out of your ass, because that's clearly not the case. So, it's very clear to me that he has nothing. He has zero, zilch. He doesn't have addresses. He doesn't have private keys. He doesn't have any Bitcoin whatsoever. He hasn't provided a single bit of evidence that he has ever done anything in Bitcoin prior to when he came out as Satoshi. Other than set up Tulip Trust and things like that. So he's just kind of a scammer. I still can't believe there are people that believe he's Satoshi. It's, willful ignorance, wishful thinking. I don't know what it is, but there's no way he's going to turn up with this money. He doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, and he has a way of, I guess, sounding smart to dumb people or people that don't know enough about this stuff or something like that. But you listen to him as a programmer, as a mathematician, as anybody that knows anything about any of the stuff that he talks about, and it's clear he doesn't know anything. And he's a scammer. He's a con artist.
Yeah, so it would have been great to have you be an expert witness in this case as a block. Do you know who was the court's blockchain or Bitcoin witness as an expert?
I'm not certain, so Craig Wright did supply some list of addresses at one point, and Kim, I forget his last name, but the guy from Japan that figured out all the stuff with Mt. Gox, he did some chain analysis on
it was Wiz something. It was
Kim something, but yeah, it's WizSec on Twitter or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did a chain analysis of all the coins sort of claimed by Craig Wright, and he was able to trace like most of them to known people, right? It's like, oh, one of them is clearly Roger Ver, for example, and it was like, well, if like Roger, why don't you like sign with the key for this particular address and disprove that Craig is Satoshi, because he's claiming this is one of his addresses. And actually, I think this is something that Roger did soon afterwards on RBTC. He signed with that key saying Craig Wright is a fraud, something like that, and that was news for a couple of days. But this is something that he doesn't have any addresses. He doesn't have any Bitcoin. Like, there's zero evidence that he does, and everything that he puts up is like, he's tried to defraud with like a bad signature. I wrote a whole article on that. With the @Satoshi handle on Twitter, and
Jimmy. And here's another problem with the space: how much productivity has been wasted proving that he's not Satoshi.
Isn't that what we're doing, Tone? Like we go on.
I agree.
Just proving, like calling out all these scams and stuff, and we don't get sponsored. We don't make.
But look,
this, and it takes an order of magnitude more effort to disprove bullshit than it does to produce it. So, we've in many ways, yeah, we've done the same thing, but this kind of the fight that you have to fight when you got a new technology.
Hey, Jimmy, I don't know if you've read this. There was this interview, apparently. I don't know if it's real or not. I read this. I had to check, is it April Fool's Day? And then someone suggested this is like a Coin Jazeera article. So I had to go and check, is this like a spinoff of a Coin Jazeera? Of all the things he said, I think I found the most arrogant one of them all. I don't know if you've read this interview, but I have to read this out loud. So here's the question from the interviewer. I know people think you're a miserable prick, but you once told me that you and your wife had decided that this 10 billion fortune was too much. You said you worried about what it would do to your kids. Here's his answer. It's fucking crazy. Now the kids are going to know that we have the other 5 billion, and it really sucks. Imagine that. I had planned to live a long time, and hopefully they wouldn't know until they were older that we were gone. It could affect their whole lives.
Yeah, it could, huh? Yeah. The fact that you're a complete scammer and everyone thinks you're a scammer and that their dad is a scammer doesn't affect them at all. But, your fake $5 billion, that's going to affect them. Sure. Yeah. I'm certain that's the case. I mean, he's playing kind of a false humility thing there, saying, like, a lot of rich people, this is something that they honestly worry about, right? Like if you're a child of Bill Gates, like coming into that kind of money is a serious thing for a parent to think about. It's what are you gonna, like? You don't want them to live life on easy mode. You want them to develop character and things like that as a parent, and that's certainly something I think about quite a lot. He's playing to that crowd a little bit and saying something like that to make himself seem a little more human. Fact of the matter is he's a scammer, and he's been proven to be a scammer over and over and over again. The fact that anyone thinks that he's not a scammer is kind of a crazy thing. And I don't know. I've beaten this horse to death, so I'll stop.
Okay, so let's just for the discussion, right? Let's lower our IQs to about 75, and believe and imagine that he can actually provide the 500,000 Bitcoin to Kleiman. And now we'll get our IQs back up. You're probably at about 120, and maybe I'm at 101. And from this point on, if Ira Kleinman has 500,000 Bitcoin that he is able to spend, what happens next? What do you think?
I don't know. There will probably be offers from giant whales all around the world to buy it all as a giant chunk instead of like doing it. OTC trading would be the way to go if you had that much Bitcoin that was dumped to you. And there are lots of people that want large positions in Bitcoin. So it wouldn't. I imagine it wouldn't necessarily hit the market at exchanges and so on. It'll just sort of go you remember the Ross Ulbricht thing with the federal marshals, the auction back in 20.
Yeah, Tim Draper bought most of those at auction. I mean, the U.S. government was fairly smart in not selling them on the open market like the people in Japan. And what's his name?
So that's probably the direction that it would go. I don't know if there's enough liquidity to absorb all 500,000 Bitcoins, but I imagine a significant amount of it could be. There's enough hedge funds and pension funds even that would consider opening a very large position like that. So I honestly don't think it would be that bad. The people sort of like thinking that it would all go on Binance and then it would get sold immediately. That's not how things work. If you have that much money and if you have any kind of brain, OTC is going to be the way to go. And the fact that there are that many Bitcoins to be sold like that would bring in new buyers for that purpose. I mean, there have always been a lot of people wanting to buy large quantities of Bitcoin. It's just that they haven't liked the price. And, if, you could probably get it done at a 2-3% discount, something like that.
Okay, so before that happens, right? What do you think it would do to the price of Bitcoin, just knowing that whether it's Faketoshi or anyone can move 500,000 Bitcoin, knowing that Bitcoin can go back into circulation? Now, my view is in the very immediate future, it will probably panic the market. It'll panic the market from both fronts. Knowing that kind of Bitcoin is moving, you're going to be scared that the dumping of that Bitcoin is going to crash the market. And you getting out ahead of that, out of Bitcoin, could potentially maybe not with all of your Bitcoin, right? But let's say you're sitting on a large stash of Bitcoin and you know that 500,000 can threaten to crash the market, right? Like here, I can sink the Bitcoin price because I'm a $6 billion whale. The problem is no one believes you. Right? Like nobody believes that he's a $6 billion whale holding 500,000 Bitcoin. But if there was proof, whether him or somebody else is moving 500,000 Bitcoin around, that could actually scare the market a little bit, because if that Bitcoin does hit the books, it'll drop the price even more. And then those people that got out will be able to buy back cheaper. Now, this is why you wouldn't get out with your entire stack of Bitcoin, because this could be just a threat by whoever is the $6 billion whale with 500,000 Bitcoin. They could threaten to sell it. This is why you have these spoof trades, right? He'll put a $1 billion order on the books, pull it, scare the market, people sell, and then he's actually going to buy some more. And then when he sells it, he's not going to tell anyone. He can just do it, but he may not want to blow through the order book unless he's able to sell it all. So I do see that there's a short panic in the market, but here's the good news. If 500 Bitcoin starts to get resold to other people, that creates a huge positive for Bitcoin going forward, because it distributes Bitcoin around the world by those that actually want to buy it from whoever this 500,000 Bitcoin whale is. So this could panic the market a little bit in the short term, but it strengthens the whole system in the long term. Your thoughts, Jimmy?
I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, I really don't think. First of all, he's not Satoshi, so he doesn't have that. And
agreed. Again, remember we lowered our Q to 75 in order to talk about it?
It's kind of like playing what if games on something that's not going to happen. But I'll entertain you for a minute. Even if the 500,000, and if you were using it to attack the network, then possibly something like the scenario that you were saying could happen. But there are whales out there with 100,000 bitcoins. I mean, they exist already, and I think you and I can speculate on who those people are, but we know they exist. But that fact doesn't change anything. And even if it was a short-term panic, most of the holders at this point have been through a lot worse. And, you know, we've been through $3,000. We've been through, you know, $180. We've been through, you know, $45. We've been through $2. I mean, if you're willing to hold through 80% drops before, I mean, a short panic, maybe that takes you down 20, 30%, that doesn't bother you. And if you're thinking like a trader and you want to take advantage of that opportunity, that's one thing. But the long-term holders are not going to get spoofed by 500,000 coins. Like the supply is 21 million. We've all known that. You're not going to be able to create anymore. But I don't think it's that big of a risk. And I don't think anybody really sells as a result of that, at least the big holders. Traders possibly, but not the big ones.
All right, so one last question before we move on. So on a scale of 1 to 100, so percentage terms, what probability do you give that this approximate 1 million Bitcoin stash that Satoshi has, which I think is less, I think the whole stash is closer to 500. I don't think even Satoshi has this much, whether it's a person or a group. What is your probability that that Bitcoin will never move? Like that he's dead, that the keys are lost, that the keys are burned, or he's not going to even want to do it even if Satoshi is alive. So what is your probability that that kind of stash that's attributed to Satoshi, whatever how big it is, never moves?
50%.
You're 50-50. Okay, cool. I actually think it's a little bit higher than that. Okay, so from one ridiculous to another ridiculous, Patrick Byrne has stepped down or was removed from Overstock.com. I started listening to this video. I made it to about 8.5 minutes. I could not take any more conspiracies, and I stopped. And this article came out this morning. I have not fully read it yet. And I mean, they really found some interesting pictures here. And this is
that an AK-47?
Is it? My gun game isn't great here.
It looks like an automatic weapon anyway. Yeah, that's crazy.
And like I haven't read this whole thing, this whole expose on Patrick Byrne. But here's what I got from the 8 minutes that I listened to it. Basically, he is stepping down because he was involved with this Marina. What's her name? Marina something. Marina Butina, who's a gun rights activist who pled guilty in 2018 to working on Russia's behalf in the U.S. without properly registering. And he had some kind of a relationship with her through his, libertarianism, views. And to me, this is getting out of control. Now, Patrick Byrne has been, I think this might have been before your time on the World Crypto Network, Jimmy, but we talked a lot about T0 when T0 was launching. And if you want to talk about a blockchain project that has pivoted, I think T0 holds the record of the amount of times they have pivoted to yet another blockchain project as a company. And if you go back to even the videos from 2015, 2014, I kept saying how this is such a money drain for a company like Overstock because they don't know what they're doing when it comes to blockchains. That I can't, going into 2016, I kept saying, I can't believe Patrick Byrne is still the CEO of Overstock. I kept saying he's going to be removed by the board because this project has just drained a ridiculous amount of money and it hasn't gotten anything done. I mean, they keep claiming that they got stuff done, but they didn't actually do it. So I'm not surprised that he's no longer the Overstock CEO. This whole conspiracy nonsense with affairs with potential Russian operatives. And then he's talking about he has like military clearance. And if he even talks to someone that could potentially be also involved with Russia, he has to report it to the higher authorities. And the moment he said that, Men in Black showed up at his house again. Like, it's insane. Like, to me, this is like, okay, how do I explain not being the Overstock CEO anymore in charge of this insane blockchain project of T0? It's, again, blockchain. The blockchain space has no bounds. Your general thoughts on T0? What the hell was it doing? I know, or if you want to comment on Patrick. I mean, I've met him a few times, and I don't know, man. Like, again, insane.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
that's my thought. This is kind of like it's a really weird story. I don't really know how to feel about it. I mean, like, it's kind of half believable, I guess. I don't really know. I don't really read the news about this sort of thing. I only found out because you pointed me to it. But yeah, it sounds very like headline fodder-ish, like clickbaity, and I'm sure news organizations will run with it. I'm surprised there aren't like more photos. Usually that's usually what happens with stories like this. There's like more photos of the woman, or something. They do like Google searches for her and stuff like that. But regardless, I mean, Overstock as a stock hasn't been doing very well. So I think I agree with you that they wanted to get rid of him, and this might be just sort of like a convenient excuse.
Yep. That's my view. I love the Forbes story. The CEO of former e-tailing giant Overstock. Have you ever bought anything from Overstock.com, Drew?
I think I bought something when they started accepting Bitcoin back when I was stupid. Yeah, I really shouldn't have bought that sewing machine. I think it was. Just stupid. Right? Like that ended up costing
those hats got to be made, Jimmy. Those hats got to be made.
I think my wife wanted to sew something. So, but yeah, it was. Yeah. All right, let's not visit my mistakes. It's almost as bad as the beef jerky I bought in 2013. Yeah.
No, but that made you healthier. Without eating meat, you may not be here with us. Yeah. So basically, a CEO of Overstock.com should not have to resign because he was sleeping with some girl. How is he supposed to know she's a Russian operative, right? He's just the CEO of Overstock.com. It's not a company critical to national defense. Okay.
I mean, yeah, it smells funny, and kind of like the whole Epstein saga. It just smells really funny. I just refuse to read the news because it's mostly propaganda these days.
All right, so sticking with insanity for 300, apparently Tether paid $267,000 in Ethereum fees by putting Tether on top of Ethereum. Smart move, Tether people. And that's how much money you spent in your transaction fees. And what the hell? Well, like, Jesus. People complain about Bitcoin's transaction fees. So now Tether has moved over to the liquid sidechain, which we continue to say that. So wait a minute. So how much fees has MakerDAO? Everyone's talking about this MakerDAO nonsense. So MakerDAO has spent
161 Ethereum, which is $34,000. Yeah.
In how much time?
In 1 month.
In 1 month, right? So
Yeah.
MakerDAO has spent $34,000 in fees by being on an Ethereum platform. Basically, there's no reason to be on top of Ethereum because Ethereum is centralized. It is not a decentralized system. It is a totally centralized system that can't scale. So by putting your dumb project on top of Ethereum, you're paying gas fees and you're getting none of the efficiency of decentralization, paying $34,000 in fees within your decentralized which you think is decentralized, which it isn't. So none of these projects are, of course, decentralized in any way, shape, or form on top of a non-decentralized platform. And the Tether project, and this is probably why, someone is paying those fees, right? So this is why it's hard for Tether to stay one-to-one. Maybe I should read this part in bold. Although Tether issued on Ethereum has existed since Tether issued on Ethereum exists since late 2017, the number of Tether issued on it was low and was seldomly used. This changed earlier this year, and the strong growth in Tether total supply can be almost all attributed to Ethereum. That's interesting. Crypto market analysis, okay. Tether Limited, the administration of Tether, because Tether is centralized, could seek to reduce its continuity risk by reducing its reliance on the Omni platform, which, again, I don't trust at all. It's not an active development, and Bitcoin. The shift between Omni and Ethereum could also be driven by market demand. Well, yeah, Tether has moved over to the liquid sidechain because they should significantly be able to reduce their fees. Let's see what Eric Lombroso has to say. Perhaps this is compounded by the fact that scaling centralized database systems largely has been solved. So you get all these tech companies, all these tech company access and investors who just assume you can build a large network and scale gracefully without completely botching the incentives. That's correct. Lastly, it is totally fine for a scarce resource to be all used up. The question is whether the incentives promote economically sensible usage. The issue isn't that the resources are all used up, but that the incentives are completely botched. So Ethereum is a total cluster. I don't want to, I already cursed, so I can just keep cursing. And this brings us again to that INX or whatever that thing we talked about in our last show. Why in the world does anyone want to create an ERC20 other than to just scam initial investors and get a bunch of money in?
I mean, that's a pretty good reason, isn't it? Like to get a bunch of money.
But if you're trying to be legitimate, right? If you're gonna,
I mean, I think they're willing to take that reputational hit for that money, right? They're basically selling their soul to get a quick hit of money. The thing about this story that's interesting is that it's probably the exchanges that are paying this money, and most of these fees are probably from traders that want to arbitrage between different exchanges and so on, or use it as a way to transfer dollars very quickly from one place to another. So Tether's on multiple different platforms. It's on Omni, which rides on top of Bitcoin, so that takes like 10 minutes. There's a Tether Ethereum, which goes faster because the Ethereum blocks are faster, and it's centralized and all that. But
right, and it's not more secure, and it obviously costs an unreasonable amount of money, right? There's
there's a lot of Tether moving around from what I hear. So I mean, this is happening there. There's also a Tether on Liquid and Tether on Tron. So really, it's the people behind Tether are using every platform that they can to quickly move Tether around. I suppose it's good for traders or something like that, or for I think it's especially popular among Chinese nationals that want to store their value in dollars instead of Bitcoin or the yuan, and they probably made the right move given the devaluation in the yuan versus the dollar. But yeah, I mean, all of the moving around is kind of crazy, and Ethereum clearly is struggling to scale because the fees are getting higher, and there's not enough room for any of this stuff. And I mean, this is why I made the video with Joe Lubin and everything else. Tone, I have to get going pretty soon.
Oh, you gotta get going. Crap. Yeah. Okay, so
if you want to move to the next story.
We'll move to the next story. I was just gonna say real quick. Hey, this is that SEC government report that we talked about in the last one. It's the INX, and there are some people that like the big, I guess, Bitcoin maximalists, as they like to call us, on that list. If you ever see me on a list of advisors or investors in an ERC20, I would quit the space. Like, I would quit this. I would not, going against everything I've said the last 5 years. If you see me doing an ERC20, I would quit the space before that happens. So some people are like, Tone will eventually sell out. No, Tone won't. Tone will leave the space and do something else. Okay, so you know what? Maybe we're not going to talk about this. Has Bitcoin and Ethereum rivalry hit new heights of hostility? Not really. I mean, Ethereum's going to die. We don't really care that much. We're just like making fun of it. So last story is So this teenager who made billions in Bitcoin is getting ready to lose all of it by promoting some scam coin. And this is what always happens, right? Like if you make a bunch of money and you don't know why you made a bunch of money, you will eventually lose that money. And we can also use Roger Ver as one of these examples for believing in Bitcoin Cash or Bcash or whatever else you want to call it. So, oh, is this Marshall Hayner?
Yeah.
Marshall Hayner this isn't Marshall Hayner, is it?
I think it is. No, Eric Finman. Eric Finman.
Oh, it's Eric Finman. Okay, yeah. Because I know who Marshall Hayner is. So this is Marshall Hayner's coin?
I think so.
Oh boy. Yeah. It was Metal's attractive design and founder CEO Marshall Hayner's drive. Oh God, I didn't know Marshall Hayner became a scammer and launched an altcoin. I used to like Marshall.
You sell your soul, you turn into a different person.
Yeah. All right, so there you go. So more people again ready to lose their money. All right, that's it for us. Oh, one last thing. Damn, I want to talk about this with you. So, I mean, obviously, Jameson Lopp is not actually going to run for president of the United States. However, I found this very interesting. So here's his platform. If selected, I'll give every citizen $1,000 in Bitcoin a month. This is doable because we'll never run out of dollars because as president, well, he thinks he can just print dollars, but he actually can't. There are checks and balances. But theoretically speaking, this is a very interesting concept in that, hey, I'm going to print a bunch of money because there's that other guy that's running for president that's going to give everybody $1,000 a month. And so Jameson says, hey, I will also give you $1,000 a month, but I'm going to print the dollars. I'm going to convert them into Bitcoin. And then I will give you $1,000 worth of Bitcoin because we'll never run out of dollars, but then you can hold on to that Bitcoin if you want to. Now, of course, in reality, everyone is going to sell that Bitcoin and take the $1,000. So at first, it will definitely drive down the price of Bitcoin, but he will raise the price of Bitcoin, trying to accumulate that Bitcoin by buying $1,000 a month. But it's an interesting end to his tweet. He's saying we'll never run out of dollars, and the economics will benefit America in the long run since we'll end up with the most Bitcoin. I actually like that because not everyone is going to sell that Bitcoin. So first of all, most people will end up losing that Bitcoin because they don't know what they're doing. And second, some of those people may hold on to some of that Bitcoin, whether because they're lazy or not. Just like a lot of people that were using the dark web back in 2011 and 12 ended up with some Bitcoin that they didn't buy drugs with, and then that Bitcoin ended up making them a lot of money. So this is an interesting concept. What do you think about it from an economic perspective, Jimmy?
Well, economically, it's a net neutral. So if the government is buying $1,000 worth of Bitcoin and then you distribute it to someone and then they sell it, it's net zero. I mean, it's a concept, and I agree with Jameson that basically the U.S. government can print as much as it wants. The way you would do it as president is get a law passed that says every American gets $1,000 a month in Bitcoin, and then there would be some Treasury Department that would have to implement this as an executive branch. And there would be a deficit in the government budget, which the Fed would make up by by selling or loaning the U.S. government money, and that would become a part of the deficit, and that would expand the pool of money. So it's easy enough to print the money without the Fed's help. There are no real checks and balances. It's if the budget increases and there's the debt ceiling rises, then the Fed has no choice but to lend it as the lender of last resort to the government. So what would that do economically? Well, I mean, mostly it'll just most people that get something for free don't really value it that much, and this has happened over and over again. A lot of MIT students, very smart kids, got $100 in Bitcoin. Most of them sold it, right? Like took the $100 and didn't do anything with it.
Right.
So I think that would be mostly what would happen. I would unless you make believers out of them, it's not going to change things any. Oh, there's my book.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a little Bitcoin book. If you want people to learn about Bitcoin and they don't really know anything about it, this is the book for them. It's a whole Well, it's not a very long book. It's 115 pages, and like something like the last 30 pages are like Q&A and additional resources and so on. So I would encourage you to use this as a way of convincing people, or if you're tired of explaining Bitcoin to people that really don't understand, just give them this book. This will be better in the long run anyway, because then
very good. And if you're going to order it, please use the link on Jimmy's website and go to Amazon through his affiliate. That would also, of course, help out us content creators. And this is a good book to go alongside Safety's book on.
So it's a little more approachable, I think. And we're going to have the audiobook in a couple of weeks, and we're working on translations and so on. So for those of you that want it in your own language, we'll have it eventually. The authors have agreed to take a lot of the profits from this book and just put it into high quality translations, so we can have it for people all over the world. And it does come from a slightly different angle than sort of the Austrian economics perspective that Safe comes in with. This one's a little bit more on human rights and why it matters to the world and so on. So, it's a great book. If you click on programming blockchain, just click on it instead of.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's where. Okay, I clicked on schedule as a schedule for the day, not the schedule of when.
So I have two seminars that I'm planning: Berlin in October and San Francisco in November. And yeah, if you're interested in learning, programming. I haven't had one of these in a while, so I'm curious to see if there's we can up the demand again, and we'll see how hot the bull market gets, I guess. But it's available on those two dates. I don't have any others scheduled, and yeah, that's about it.
All right, very cool. All right, guys, we're gonna let Jimmy go. I'm just gonna.
All right, guys, this song is done, and pay attention to tone for price.
Well, no, they're about to get scammed. Well, you guys are about to get scammed because I just did a whole video on price with Trader Cobb earlier today. But I'll take a look at a quick peek at the price because I didn't really talk about the short term. But before I talk about the price, I'll talk about it for a minute. And I also want to see how the S&P 500 opened. And hey, if you want to support, please check out the affiliate section. Also, in the conference section, of course, the Bali event, please check that out. If you are a trader or you are a fund looking for traders, this is where you want to be. This is the goal of the event. Also, on the travel side, if you go over to the calendar, here are some really cool events I will be heading to. Well, August is almost over. And the Black Blockchain Summit, so you can just pull this down. Click on that, and you can see who I'm speaking alongside. Of course, the Honey Badger Conference, which is a little more Bitcoin inclined conference. And after that, no conferences. Of course, Hackers Congress, you can check that one out. And my European trip ends, I'll be in Romania as well. A lot of conferences and also CC Forum. That's the one in London. I should have a discount code for I think you can even sign up for free. I think I got some messages. I can give you a discount code, sign up for free, and you can attend and listen to the presentations. I think, don't hold me to that. I gotta double check my phone. I'm in contact with the organizers of this event, and I will be there as well. And then I'm off to Bali. All right, guys. Haven't had a time really to think about the price. The video with Trader Cobb was pretty good earlier. I really enjoyed that one. I really liked his simplicity of what he looks at for his trading. The price of Bitcoin is hovering at this $10,000 mark. Now, the weekly chart is not interesting in the least right now to me. So what we do have to pay attention to is this daily chart. The daily chart is what really, really matters to me. Computer is lagging a little bit here. I'm going to double click on this and I'm going to expand the range. So it is this daily chart that is interesting to me, and it is in a bearish posture. So tomorrow, if we're getting a red 2 going below a red 1 and we're breaking out of this triangle to the downside, that starts to bother me. Now, obviously, this triangle can break and we can still be within the bigger triangle. I don't know which one I would want to happen. Ideally, I'd want the Bitcoin to stay as stable as possible, mostly because I am organizing conferences where there's costs and expenses, and I don't really want a very volatile Bitcoin that I then need to immediately hedge. So, but that's my personal problems. Nobody cares about that. When it comes to price, I don't like this triangle. I don't like this posture. Now, I don't see any trades up or down at the moment, but there certainly will be in the near future. All I can tell you is I see this posture is very, very bearish. The 12-hour chart is staying neutral. There are two schools of thought here, right? If I look at the weekly scale, there are two schools of thought. Hey, we're consolidating at the top, which is a bullish sign for a potential breakout. However, the way it's consolidating on a daily scale worries me. It's not always about consolidation at the top. It's also about how it's consolidating. And if it was consolidating in a different posture at the top, I would be very, very bullish right now. But because of the way it's consolidating at the top, I am pretty bearish at the moment. The 4-hour chart is, I'm going to continue this. I don't know what happened there. The 4-hour chart is also in a bearish posture with this channel. So until it breaks out of the channel, it will stay that way. We can briefly look at Bitcoin dominance. This is the total market cap, which of course will drop if the prices drop. We look at Bitcoin dominance and it's now at 71%. If Bitcoin dominance hits that 73, 74% area, and I know Bitcoin dominance on total market cap is different than the Bitcoin dominance on over here, but they do trend obviously with like 98% correlation or 99% correlation. So, I mean, Bitcoin dominance, unless it starts to break out towards that $75 area, it's not really going to mean much to me at the moment. And of course, the shitcoins, since Bitcoin dominance has been steady, the shitcoins have been steady as well against Bitcoin, but I do expect them to break down. I have no idea what this chart is. Oh yeah, I don't care about that. The gold chart looks like it's pulling back if the market is able to recover. Oh, nope, gold's back up. It was pulling back early this morning. Gold is now back up, and it is approaching that 62% Fibonacci line. And what it means is all the idiots in the chat that keep saying Tone said $800 Bitcoin, that's correct. But the moment, $800 gold price. But the moment gold broke the 38% Fibonacci, I was no longer looking for the $800 gold price. So anyone that thinks that I am looking for an $800 gold price is either a liar or a straight up fool, because for the last 5 years, all I've been saying is until gold breaks the 38% Fibonacci, I am looking for lower prices. Once it breaks the 38% Fibonacci, I am no longer looking for lower prices, and I am now looking for higher prices. And the first target of those higher prices is at 1600 and this Fibonacci line. Ideally, however, I'd like it to come on a 9, either weekly or daily, preferably both. We can look at the daily scale just because I want to see the sequential, and it's only going to be on a 3. So that's not really interesting to me. But if we go up into next week and we're hitting 1580 in 6 trading days from now, that would become a potential top the way this 9 was a short-term top, and this 9 was a short-term top with consolidation. So if I get another one of these tops on a 9, and this 9 was a consolidating top. So these are all potential exit points. You may not have great entry points, but they are all potential exit points if you continue to hold on to the gold. And if this gets me to another 9 near this Fibonacci line, I would be interested in calling another short-term top, which could obviously be broken the next day. Yep, the stock market is pulling back, so gold's going up. They are inversely correlated. As long as the stock market doesn't close below this red trend line and then open below this trend line the following day, I will remain somewhat optimistic that all of this bullshit with China is just talk. Haven't looked at stocks in a while because my videos have already gone long. I will take a look at Uber because I am curious myself on what is going on with Uber. And Uber on a weekly scale is looking very, very good for me for a potential buying opportunity at the low. So I would love to see Uber crash some more into the $24, $28 price range on a weekly 9 in line with a daily 9. On a daily, we're only on a red 4. I would love to see a price flip. So basically, I become very, very bearish Uber if we break this low. If we break this low opportunity, if we break this low right here, I become bearish. Now, I don't want to see this broken on a 6 or a 7 daily sequential. What I really want to see is a little uptick in Uber to give me a green 1 and then hopefully a red 1 and then a red 2 on a daily scale following that. So I'm breaking this line with a red 2 going below red 1. That is my short trade on Uber that I won't make because I won't be watching as it happens. This is what I would be watching if I was an active trader in the market. However, looking back at the weekly scale, I would have to keep in mind that I would take on the short trade at the very end of the sequential cycle on a weekly scale. So ideally, that red 2 on a daily would have also been a red 2 on a weekly, giving me a nice, long-term expectation for more downside in Uber. Now, Uber can only go down so much. I usually don't expect IPOs to go down more than 50 to 60% in price. So Uber opening at $42 means that I don't really want to wait too much, and I would want to be a buyer of Uber stock around the $21 area, like this 50% correction. Facebook did the same thing back in the day, but then it still went lower, went all the way to 17 after a $42 open. So they certainly can go lower. And we looked at one of these, JMIA, which opened at $18, rallied to 50, and is now trading at 11.48. So it is coming dangerously close to its 50% correction off the IPO price. And again, if you do some research on this company and you think this is a credible company with a credible business, that could be a potential long-term opportunity. Now, you can see here on a daily scale, just like I described in Uber, we are also dangerously close to breaking the swing low. See, on a weekly scale, you have broken the swing low. On a weekly scale, you have broken the closing low, which is good enough for me. So on a weekly scale, sometime this week, there was a short trade, but it's again a red 7 going down just like in Uber. So you do have to be careful. Now on a daily scale, this has not yet broken down, and we are coming dangerously close to a 13 on the countdown phase, which ends the momentum off of this 9 here. But we're going to break the swing low with more downside on a weekly. And so this could have more potential downside. I find it very difficult to believe that the stock would go below $10, but it could. But ideally, I would love to buy this thing at half the price of its IPO price. But I would need to look into the company a little bit more. I have to make sure they're not a one-hit wonder like a GoPro or a Fitbit or some of the other ones, that they actually have a sustainable business into the future. See, Uber, Lyft, they have a sustainable business into the future. This business may not be profitable for another 5 to 10 years like Amazon wasn't, but at least it's an actual business. It doesn't rely on a single trinket that you need to sell with the Chinese copying your IP and selling it at a cheaper price, right? So as long as you have a sustainable business going, picking up a stock at 50% drop after an IPO, assuming things look good, is not necessarily a bad idea. I'm not saying I would do it, but I'm saying that's what I would be looking for. Now, there's a 13 coming up, and in a perfect world, I would get a 9 buying opportunity around $10 with a 13 on the sequential. So like a complete bottom. I already got my other combo. There's probably going to be an aggressive 13 tomorrow. So everything in this stock could potentially bottom out around, a little above $10 sometime at the end of the month. And I will be looking for that even though the weekly doesn't yet align. All right. That was a lot. I don't want to go. Did I even look at Lyft? I don't want to talk about Lyft today. We'll talk about it another time. I do keep an eye on Titan. Titan rallying again. Nice. So I thought that Titan could go down. You can look at this moving average held it. I would have been bearish right here on this red 2 candle, but I would have been no longer bearish on this green 3 candle. And then this positive 1 candle definitely swung you out, right? So just because you're bearish here, expecting it to go significantly lower because of weekly and monthly charts, just because I was expecting it to go lower right here in a red 7, it doesn't mean I still am. Like, I really thought this could get me to a red 9 weekly. Unless this thing collapses, it won't happen. This is a stock in India, so you do need access to the Indian market to trade. I just really love how it topped, and I refer to this as the short of the decade on this particular stock due to how everything lined up. Curious about Tesla. Oh, that weekly chart does not look good. It looks very, very scary. And the daily chart is consolidating at this low. The daily chart is not looking great either. If I was to take on a trade in Tesla, it would be to the downside. Starbucks has been rallying. Is it going to continue to do so? See, this is the bullish chart I like. I don't care that Starbucks is at a new all-time high. I like the posture of this chart. We have a green 2 going above a green 1 after a month-long consolidation. If the stock market is going to break out, this would be one of the names I would be potentially looking to get into. Again, assuming I was actively trading, which I am not. All right, that's it for me. Spotify. How long have they been public? How long have they been public? Oh, they've been public. No, not that long. They went public last year. And ooh, nice 9 at the low. And it hasn't had any 9s since on a weekly scale. Nice 9 right at the high. Man, I'm starting to really love how sequential is used on these IPOs. I mean, sequential only gave you 2 arrows on the life of the stock, which has been around for a year and a half on a weekly scale. One of them marked the absolute top in the stock, and the other one was 1 week off the low. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. On a daily scale, it could be like crap, but on a weekly scale, it looked great. Here's a 9 that flipped over, marking the swing high. This looks terrible from a daily perspective. You have a depth cross here, not tradable because your price is too low, too far below it. You are on a red 4 and you're breaking below this moving average. So I don't like this name from a TA perspective. It is worth a good chunk. And yeah, there was, I mean, it's hard for me to say that this was a nice short trade right here on this red 1 because A, it's a red 1, and B, there is a 200-day moving average not that far away. And now it's a red 4, which is a little late in my count for a perfect active short trade. It's doable, but would I have been able to trade Spotify to the downside from 150 down to 135? My answer is probably not. I probably would not have taken on the short trade because it was not the ducks were not lining up based on my style of trading. Okay. All right, guys. All right, I gotta go. I got some meetings coming up. 2 1-hour podcasts in a day is enough. I think I'm done streaming for the day. Of course, anything can happen. And once again, check out tonebase.com. Check out the calendar. This event in London is going to be a lot of fun while that's loading. Also, this event in Romania is going to be a lot of fun. I got a few Bitcoin maximalists speaking there. So it's going to be interesting. If you're near Romania, if you're near London, in October, come out. I'm already promoting stuff in October. I really should be focusing on September. All right, guys. Yeah, this is the Transylvania event. So that should be great. Peter Todd's coming. Giacomo's coming. It'll be a lot of fun. Oh, Pierre Richard. Nice. Pierre's guy. I never met Dominic Frisbee. That'll be pretty cool. And yeah, check that out. It'll be good to see Theo again and Matt Bitcoins. So very, very cool event. And straight from there, I'm going to shoot over to London for CC Forum 14th through 16th. A lot of good speakers here as well. So it's great. I don't think I've ever met a Lord. Someone with a title of Lord. Should be interesting. All right. Okay, guys, that's it for me. And where's the stop screen share? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.